now. I work in our audio solutions department, which is basically a think tank for Audio-Technica. So we provide technical and application support, which is fairly new. So when you would call, Shure, Sennheiser, Audio-Technica, about 15, 20 years ago, you would get the receptionist. And if you had a question about something, they would usually send you off to one of the engineers. And from there, they would have to take time away from their engineering duties to answer your, just questions that consumers have. So Audio-Technica created this department called Audio Solutions, and that's kind of what we do. So we do a lot of training as well. A lot of times when you'll call up or email us a question, you'll get a little master class from us because, especially me, I just really enjoy this stuff. I'm an official audio nerd, so I did this presentation back in the fall for Harvard. They have a bunch of our microphones that they use on campus, and they just said, hey, can someone come out and talk to us a bit? One of the microphones they specifically have is our 4050 microphone. And last year was actually the 25th anniversary of that. So there's a little bit in the presentation about that, but it does apply with some helpful information. So hopefully we can gain some knowledge from that. What I'm thinking about doing is doing some kind of going through a few different aspects of it, and then we'll stop and take some questions. If you have some questions while I'm talking, go ahead and write them down. We'll definitely, if we don't get to them in this stream, definitely email to me, and I'd love to answer your questions. So let's start off here. All right, let's see. All right, so I've got a lot of videos in here as well, and hopefully we should be able to see and hear the videos as well. When I was testing out the videos the other day, there was some choppiness to it, so bear with that with the stream. So first, starting off, I got to do a little bit of kind of what is Audio-Technica. They pay my bills, so got to do it. So let's see here. Here we go. Okay, so Audio-Technica was founded in 1962 by Hideo Matsushita. He's up in the upper right-hand corner. He left his position working with music playback systems, some hi-fi systems in a museum in Japan. While working at the museum, he offered live concerts of music on the hi-fi systems at the museum. Most people didn't have hi-fi systems in their houses at that time. And so he would put on a concert per se of recorded music on these really hi-fi systems. So he really enjoyed art and the high quality representation of audio. And he said, why don't I start making phono cartridges for turntables? And that's kind of how Audio-Technica started, was we started making phono cartridges for turntables. And now with this resurgence of vinyl, everything is kind of coming full circle. I mean, a big portion of our business is the consumer side, headphones and turntables. His son, Kazuo-san, who is in the middle near the bottom, he's the current CEO of the Audio-Technica Global division. You'll notice through Audio-Technica's history, there's a firm stand on audio quality, the transparency, and not only high Japanese standards, but also a long-standing Japanese traditions. So one of the things we'll also talk about is I've been working with the Olympics. We've been doing the microphones for the Olympics since 1996. And with the Summer Games that are now pushed back to next year, being in Japan, in Tokyo, it's kind of our home turf. So we're going to be coming out with some really hi-fi products kind of based around with the Olympics. So you'll notice kind of a lot of that as we go through things. So real quick, here's a video that we did for our 25th anniversary a few years back. So it's a little bit dated, but kind of gives you a little bit of history.
At our core is a passion for listening. Listening to high art and heavy metal, to the crack of a bat and the roar of a crowd. Listening to news in the making and political discourse, to records and movies and songs. In 1962, our founder, Hideo Matsushita, left an established position at the Bridgestone Museum of Art in Tokyo to open the doors of Audio-Technica in a one-story workshop, handcrafting stereo phonograph cartridges. 50 years later, we have grown into a worldwide audio innovator. Branching out from our roots in Japan to a presence throughout Asia, Europe, and the Americas, offering with each new product and new location more of the acclaimed fidelity and durability that has become synonymous with our name. As we turned our attention to headphones in the 1970s, our passion for listening grew into a heritage of innovation, meticulous engineering, and artful design. We were working then, as we still are today, to create the world's best personal listening experience. In the 1980s, we launched our compact Unipoint microphones that changed the landscape of business presentations and other installed communications with their sleek profiles and high-fidelity audio. In the 1990s, we introduced our renowned 40 series condensers, beginning with the AT4033 that made the pristine sound of studio microphones affordable for the first time ever. In the first decade of this century, we developed our advanced wireless microphone systems, providing incredible audio quality and acclaimed performance for artists, broadcasters, and presenters worldwide. We have also pioneered innovations in portable headphone design and noise-canceling technology, and followed the resurging popularity of vinyl with a new line of USB turntables. For the past 50 years, our products have refined the audio quality of international broadcast events like the Summer and Winter Games and the Grammy Awards, impeccable studio recordings and live performances, history-making world affairs and government, and the simple enjoyment of music, speech, and worship. We have blossomed with every decade, working to change the sound of communication, clarifying words, sound effects, and music wherever audiences and artists connect. Because at our core, we believe that listening is so much more than a job requirement. We are inspired to develop products that will become legendary pieces of audio equipment. We hope our quest for perfectly articulate audio inspires people all over the world to create and enjoy wonderful works of communication and art. Audio-Technica. Always listening.
All right, so that was pretty choppy on my end. I apologize for that. So kind of, at least kind of gets us the idea. So done with the selling part of it. So basically, one thing that I'd like to do is, our department's not in sales. So I'm not going to try and sell you anything. Let's just start talking about microphones. So first off, what does Audio-Technica make? We make transducers. Transducer is a device that takes one form of energy and creates another. So for an example, what we're going to be talking about, microphones, a sound wave hits the transducer, and then that creates an electrical energy. So there's transducers could be inputs and outputs. So if we looked at an input, what would an input device be? It'd be a capture device, like a microphone, or as we started with, phono cartridges. It's the exact same thing. So the phono cartridges, you have the needle that's moving up and down in the record grooves. And as that moving up and down, the magnets inside the phono cartridges create the electrical energy. Same sort of thing with a microphone. That sound source is hitting the microphone diaphragm, and that's creating an electrical energy. An output transducer, same sort of thing, just in the opposite direction. So headphones and speakers, you have the electrical energy, and that is then moving a diaphragm back and forth, and that is creating then back out sound. All right, so there's a bunch of different microphones, right? And kind of the big question is, how do you choose which one? There's microphones for different specific purposes. And there's no perfect microphone. There is the microphone that might be best for that particular application. There's a lot of different things that should be taken into account. There's the acoustics of the room. There's the sound source, whether it's a male or female singing. Each person is going to have a different sound signature. So for a lot of audio applications, when we get questions, the answer is often, it depends. And we'll talk, through this different presentation, there's going to be a lot of it depends. Microphones differ in how they capture and how they do the transduction. So we're going to start off really simple. We're going to start off with looking at kind of the basics of microphones, and then we'll kind of dive deeper into some of the meat and potatoes of things. All right, so first off is our dynamic microphone. This is sort of when you think of somebody holding a microphone when they are speaking for like a live presentation. So it's a magnetic induction, so it's a moving coil. So a diaphragm is attached to the coil of wire and suspended around the magnet. So here's a little visual of that. The sound hits the diaphragm and it causes it to move up and down and back and forth between the coils. The movement of the coils around the magnet creates the voltage then at that point. So with the dynamic microphone, it's going to be pretty inexpensive, right? It's pretty easy to make. They're pretty rugged. So they allow for a lot of versatility. It's going to be, you can pick up a dynamic microphone for, $3-4. A good dynamic microphone, $50-100. Again, pros and cons, if we look at dynamic microphones, is the lower sensitivity. So the microphone is not going to be as hot. So one of the things is, let's say, let's take this example of, people having to work at home. If you want to not really have to hear a lot of other things that's going on in your room or in your house, we've got birds, and during this presentation, they might start yelling and screaming and singing. So a dynamic microphone would be nice. I get real close to the microphone. I don't have to turn it up as much. And so it allows you to get a cleaner signal that way. It's a limited high frequency response. So the higher end of the higher frequencies are usually cut off. And there's no max SPL. That's a rating that you'll see for some microphones, is what the max SPL is, the sound pressure level. And that basically means at some point that microphone, you're going to get a distorted signal. If you needed to pick up a gunshot, if you're doing audio for video and you needed to capture a gunshot, a dynamic microphone would be good, because you're not going to exceed the sound pressure level that microphone can take. The next one is going to be ribbon microphones. These are usually older microphones, but they are making a comeback. It's a corrugated ribbon, and it's suspended between the poles of a large permanent magnet. So again, another visual representation of this here. The sound hits the ribbon, very thin piece of metal, and it causes it to move between the magnet. The ribbon movement between the magnets creates a very small voltage. So that was used for recording back in the days, rather than a dynamic microphone. It didn't have that higher frequency, so ribbon microphones were then used at that point. Also, a step-up transformer is usually used in ribbon microphones to boost up that voltage to something usable. Ribbon microphones, they're a bit more expensive, much more fragile. With older ribbon microphones, if you would blow into it, so sometimes you get people and they walk up to it and boom, 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 test 1, 2. If you blew into a ribbon microphone, you had the possibility of breaking it at that point. So very, very fragile. Additionally, when you stored them, you needed to store them in an upright position. If you put them on their side, the diaphragm in the middle would possibly bend down. So the relative flat frequency response, a very good audio representation through these. Low output level, step-up transformer or ribbon preamp is used. So a lot of times people ask, well, what is step-up transformer? So here's 2 ribbon microphones that Audio-Technica makes. On the left-hand side is the 4080 microphone, and to the right is the 4081. Very similar. They're tuned a little bit differently, but you'll notice there they've got those yellow kind of blocks there in them, and that's going to be the step-up transformer. And I found a really good video on YouTube that I stole that gives a really good example of explaining what a transformer is.
In the world of pro audio, we hear the word transformers a lot. Some products, like microphones and preamps, tout their use of transformers, while others proudly proclaim they use a transformerless design. So what are transformers? They look like this, or this, or this. Sometimes they're in cases, or wrapped in tape. Transformers do a lot of different jobs. They step levels up or down, like increasing the output level of a microphone or bringing an instrument down to mic level. They balance inputs and outputs, match impedance, eliminate ground loops, block DC while passing audio, and the list goes on. A transformer is just 2 long wires wrapped around one magnetic core. Signal passes from one wire to the other, but the wires don't touch. What sorcery is this? It's a funny feature of our universe called electromagnetism, where electric current creates magnetic fields and vice versa. The electrical current running through the first coil of wire, called the primary, creates a magnetic field in the core. This magnetic field then induces a corresponding voltage in the second or secondary coil. Voila! We now have the same signal at both sides of the transformer without a single electron making the journey directly from one wire to the other. So, if we have the same signal at both sides, how does a transformer step voltage up or down? We only get that exact same signal on both sides when both coils have the exact same number of turns around the core. By changing the number of turns in each coil, we can directly change how much signal is transferred between them. For example, if the primary coil has 200 turns and the secondary has 100 turns, we call this a turns ratio of 2 to 1, only half the signal will be transferred. This is called a step-down transformer. However, we could turn that same transformer around and use it as a step-up transformer to double the signal. Of course, we don't just keep transformers around to do technical jobs, they also sound really good.
So that to me was, I thought was a good representation of kind of understanding what a transformer is, because just like in the video they said, we hear it a lot, but is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? It depends. It depends on what it is we're looking to have it do. So with ribbon microphones, especially, they put out a very low voltage, so we use a transformer to boost that signal up to something we could actually use. And then we come to condenser microphones. This is most of the time when we're dealing with recording stuff, what we're going to look at. Condenser microphones are really good for audio quality. Like the ribbon microphone before it, the condenser microphone has very good audio representation rather than the dynamic microphones. And we can make them very small. So for a lot of lavalier microphones or microphones we need to hide, they're condenser microphones. So let's look at how those work and how they pick up audio. The electrically charged backplate and there's a diaphragm in front of it. So there's a polarized backplate. And as the diaphragm moves in front of it, that creates a capacitor. So the sound hits the diaphragm, causes it to move, and the diaphragm's movement in relation to the backplate creates the voltage then. Now, again, it does create a pretty small voltage. So in condenser microphones, we'll often use a transformer or a FET circuit or tube microphones. So something that's used to, again, kind of raise up that voltage. So again, condenser microphones are usually more expensive. They capture the subtle nuances in audio. So used for studio or something that we need a better audio representation. Relatively flat frequency response. To power up the op amps inside of the microphones that are used, it requires phantom power or battery power. It's something that is that's providing that voltage that we're able to operate that. And then another thing is we're able to miniaturize that. So there's, let's look at large and small diaphragm microphones. Sometimes you'll hear that, a large diaphragm microphone or a small diaphragm. The small diaphragm has better transient response. So think of mass, right? Is it easier to push a car or push a bike? It's easier to push a smaller mass, so you get faster transient response, so like drums or something. Now, the trade-off with that is they don't have as good of a lower frequency response. So the larger diaphragms, you get more mass, slower transient, same as the dynamic microphones, but you do get a better low end on that. So large diaphragms, larger mass, lower noise floor, more sensitive, and the choice for lower frequencies. So for vocals, a lot of things like that you want kind of a more natural sound response. Smaller diaphragms, smaller mass, better transient response, choice for higher frequencies, and extended higher frequency response. Now, sometimes you might not be able to tell what it is by looking at it. Here's two of the Audio-Technica microphones. On the left is the AT4040, which is a large diaphragm, and on the right, the AT4033, which is a small diaphragm. Besides the angle of it, on the 4040, you can see the actual element in there. But from the outside, they look identical. Let's look at it on the inside a little bit. So with the 4040, the circuit board is lying down, where on the 4033, you see the circuit board there. But the difference really is just in the diaphragms. The diaphragms themselves at the top, the AT4040 has a larger surface, it's a larger diaphragm. The 4033 is actually a small diaphragm. A large diaphragm is usually going to have a diameter of about 1 inch or more. That's kind of the where the spec is at, where that's changed. Now, again, for condenser microphones, that's going to be what we see for a lot of different microphones that we'll use. So shotgun microphones, lavalier microphones, boundary microphones, gooseneck microphones, headworm microphones. A lot of these we can make really small, and they're all some type of condenser. What I like to call them is kind of special purpose. Boundary microphones, right in the center at the bottom. That is laid onto a surface, and it uses the reflective sound that's bouncing off of the surface. Those are really good if, putting on a table or a podium. But also if we needed to capture tap dancing or something that's, on the floor. You get some really odd applications. You have to be a bit creative with it. Shotgun microphones on the left-hand side, the really long ones. Those have an elongated tube which creates an off-axis rejection. So a lot of times people will think a shotgun microphone is going to be able to pick up a sound source from a long way away. That's actually incorrect. Unlike a camera where you have a zoom lens and you can, use that zoom and feel like you're right next to somebody that's 10 feet away from you. A shotgun microphone is not going to do that. A shotgun microphone is more like a paper towel tube. If I look through that paper towel tube, I'm still going to be able to tell that sound source is 10 feet away from me, but it's kind of rejecting what I'm seeing off to the sides. So the longer the tube on a shotgun microphone, the more off-axis rejection you do have. Lavalier microphones, those are going to be, for hands-free. Those became really popular and people didn't want to hold a microphone. Well, you can clip on a microphone to you. The next step up from that is a head-worn microphone. Head-worn microphone now is hands-free, but a lot of times when people are using a lavalier microphone and they're turning their head, they're changing the distance between where the microphone element is and the sound source. So you get uneven sound coverage. The head-worn microphone became popular for that application. When you turn your head, you're still keeping that same distance. And then gooseneck microphones, you'll see, for a lot of meeting rooms and stuff like that. We can miniaturize those. Do we have any questions at this point? Let me go here. Let me stop my presentation. I can see there is, if you have a question, you can go ahead and say it at this point, or I see I've got my chat up here if anybody has any questions. No questions. Looks good. Okay.
I'd be interested to learn a little bit more about the history of Audio-Technica, if that fits in.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, the video is nice, but it did seem kind of more like a sales side of it. I don't know if you have an opinion or any.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So when Audio-Technica started, like I said, we started with phono cartridges. So we made transducers, and then we thought, well, we're making transducers, let's just make it the other way. So we started making headphones and speakers. And that went then back to microphones and then wireless systems. So really, when it comes down to it, Audio-Technica, what we do is we build transducers. We do have some other things that we have kind of some accessories to it. So we've got some automated mixers for installed sound or meeting spaces. That's where we're seeing a lot of growth in the industry. There's a lot of installed sound is what we call it. So meeting spaces. We'll talk a little bit later about ambisonic microphones, which is where we're able to create beamforming. So with a single microphone, it would be the same as using multiple microphones in one location. A lot of times, again, when it comes down to it depends. You want something to sound just like, what we're used to hearing with good microphones. And then you put in one microphone and it's doing all this processing and all that other stuff. And it doesn't sound the same when you think, well, that's not a very good product. And that's where, then the price gets jacked up on things. So, as far as business goes, I'm very not business savvy. I'm very much, again, like an audio nerd that I just want, the best microphone, put all the money into R&D and make the best product out there. You can make the best microphone that there is. And if it doesn't sell well, it's not considered a success. So when it comes to that business aspect of it, I'm not very, that's not how my brain works. Did you have any specific questions as far as like the history of Audio-Technica or?
No, I didn't know that the guy who founded it worked at an art museum and wanted a better quality, higher fidelity sound from his record collection. I mean, that sounds.
Yeah. And that does kind of then I think really portray what Audio-Technica is about. We are often seen as sort of an underground thing. We're not kind of the first one that comes to a lot of people's minds. And that's because with the Japanese culture, we are very thought out, slow at times when it comes to market with things, because it has to be the best. It has to be There's a lot of uh, um, inspiration that goes into things and how things work together. Very thought out. Sometimes, and then, for here in the US, we do, we're, communicating back and forth. Hey, we need this product now. We need this now. There's, this new trend coming in on this. And it's very slow and methodical in Japan, which again has its pros and cons. And there's just some things that, I'm very lucky to work for a company that I do truly believe in the product. I use the microphones myself. I grew up about a half hour from where the U.S. headquarters is, where I work now. And I've always had Audio-Technica microphones. I've started getting into audio when I was, 8, 10 years old. And very lucky to work for a company that I do truly believe in the product. Like I said, I'm not in sales, so I don't ever try and push, the sales aspect here. You need to buy this microphone. I'm always more the solutions based of what it is that we're trying to do. And Audio-Technica probably has a solution for it. We've got a really wide product range, again, from our consumer stuff like our turntables and headphones to our pro stuff. If anyone else has a question, if not, I'll jump into the next aspect of it here. If you do have other questions, like I said, go ahead and write them down, and you can email them to me as well. So let's see here. Let me jump back up here. Anytime screen. There we go. Okay. So we'll look at this microphone specifically just for a little bit, the 4050. It is in, it's a large diaphragm in our 40 series microphone. And this is a real big workhorse. And I like to use this as an example, kind of to dive a little bit deeper into the specs of condenser microphones. So with the 4050, there's a few different things that I want to point out. So the housing design used for reflections inside of the body of the microphone, that's all marketing brouhaha. Okay. The next one is actually pretty good. It's a dual diaphragm. And so why do we use a dual diaphragm? Well, there's two. It's always better. No. It helps keep the the directional pickup even at low frequencies. So if we look at, in the specifications of a microphone, the polar pattern. So the microphone is picking up in different directions. You have a directional microphone, what's called a cardioid pickup, is 120 degrees on the front of the microphone. And we'll look at this sort of in 3D in just a second here. And if you look at the right-hand side is what you'll see for most single diaphragm microphones. And that is the specification here is usually based off of 1K. That's kind of the standard that most people use. So you see here with the solid line, oops, that's not what I wanted. Go back here. Okay, with this solid line here is about 120 degrees off of the front of the microphone. This is where we're standing. Now you do notice some of the lower frequencies have a pickup in the back. With lower frequencies, those are more omnidirectional. With a dual diaphragm, we get that same directionality even at the low frequencies. So that's one of the helpful things that you see a dual diaphragm is it's helping keep that directionality at all frequencies. So here's a little visual. Again, the directionality of a microphone is specified in the degree and the off-axis rejection from the front of the microphone element. So you'll notice here on the 3D, its pickup is in front of the microphone, roughly 120 degrees. And this is 3D. Think of that. So you do get it from the top, from the sides, But from the back of the microphone, we have a null, a space where we're not really picking up sound. That's helpful because if, let's say, we wanted to, in a live application, the microphone, somebody was speaking or singing, and they've got a monitor wedge on the floor. We wanted to maybe put that monitor in the off-axis spot of the microphone. So that's where you get these kind of different directionalities of the microphone. All right, so next is we age the microphones. Or we age the elements, I'm sorry. The elements, a lot of times for headphones, we'll hear people say, well, what's the burn-in process? And diaphragms move, they stretch, and they're going to change a bit. So if you get a new set of hi-fi headphones, sometimes people will burn those in or play white noise through them or do different things to stretch out the diaphragm to its, when it's at its potential. We age all of the microphone elements, so they're ready to use really out of the box. One of the things about the 4050 is it's sort of 3 microphones in one. So that switch that's near the bottom allows you to change the pickup of the microphone. So we have the standard cardioid, 120 degrees around the microphone. Again, here's kind of another visual of that. Additionally, with the 4050 is bidirectional, or a figure of 8. It's going to be roughly even coverage on the front and back of the microphone. You can have 2 people picking up. You do have some nulls on the side. And then lastly is omnidirectional, roughly picking up 360 degrees around the microphone. So within this one microphone, it's sort of 3 in 1. You can, a lot of times, again, people ask, well, what's the perfect microphone? It depends. With this microphone, you're sort of killing 3 birds with one stone, with one microphone. One of the biggest things with microphones is how they sound. So when people are looking for microphones, I usually talk about the objective and the subjective. So the subjective is how it sounds, and that's going to differ from me to you. I might have a different sound in mind of what it is that I want the microphone to sound like. The objective is, what does that microphone offer as far as with features? What does it include? Does it come with a shock mount? Does it include, this or that? So that's kind of how Audio-Technica has our products ranging up and down the food chain per se. We have our 20 series microphones, which are good for people starting off. Roughly about $100 for our AT2020 microphone, which is a large diaphragm condenser microphone. Then we have the 2050, which is it's the little brother to the 4050, same sort of thing, 3 microphones in one. Then we go up to our 40 series, which is kind of what we looked at here for a lot. And then we do have a 50 series, which we'll look at here in just a little bit with kind of some new technology, something that nobody else is really doing before. But real quick, let's take a little bit more look at the 4050 and how it sounds. Now, obviously through this Skype, it's going, or the Zoom meeting, it's going to be limited. But just for an example here, let's look at Jimmy Fallon with The Tonight Show. So he's got a lavalier microphone, which is what we're hearing most of the time when he's talking. He does have a 4050 microphone on his desk there. It's the silver color. It was our 50th anniversary. We did some special models in that silver color. Now, in this example, you'll hear him talk through his lavalier microphone, and then he'll pick up the 4050 microphone and talk through that. And we'll hear the tonal difference. It's going to be more richer. It's going to be more fuller.
I'm gonna take my rake to the backyard. Oh, I'm gonna rake till I can't no more. I'm gonna take my rake to the backyard. Oh, I got this rake at the big rake store. Big rig store?
I don't know. He kind of bailed out that last line.
Well, he was busy farming sporks. You could have said I got it at the Home Depot.
Something,
maybe, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I got it at the Home Depot. Yeah, you're right. Big rake store.
Yeah. My favorite
This one's
place
from at Rosie Roro.
Roro?
Okay. So you're a fall guy, pumpkin spice and all guy, hoodie not too small guy, got your boots and all guy. I'm the fall guy. Duh. Wow.
So different tonal quality to that. And let's see here. The next is Lenny Kravitz. His rig. He was recently out on tour, and we got our artist relations person was out, and she got this good shot of his guitar rig, which uses 4 of the 4050s and 2 Shure SM57 microphones. So that's all just his rig there. He also uses AT wireless for his guitar and vocals, and additionally with his backup. His back line for all the other instruments in the band. It's got a total of 26 40-50 microphones on the stage. So I thought that was pretty cool, but I kind of got a good shot there of that. If there's any Rush fans out there, there is a really cool video online for Neil Peart's drum set. He uses almost all AT microphones for his drum set. Including 40-50, I think on like the Gong or something like that. But there's a lot of info online to take a look at. A lot of stuff you can really learn, especially kind of during this whole craziness thing where we're sort of all in lockdown. Spend a lot of time online. There's so much information out there. And one specific place that I'd recommend to go to you is I can play all these videos online all day for you. But there's this place called Audio Test Kitchen. It's a new company that started up just last year, and it does allows you to do a side-by-side comparison of like 5,000 microphones or something like that. And this is a great resource that you can audition. So they tried to do it as scientific as possible for the microphone and the placement of things. Right now, they just did large diaphragm microphones. Excuse me. But you can hear what an AT 4050 would sound like on a particular voice or instrument, and then switch over to the AT 2020 microphone. So you will be able to listen to a $700 microphone versus a $100 microphone. And they've got, obviously, all the brands out there, large diaphragm microphones. So really good resource. Check them out, take note of it, and it really allows you to kind of audition things. Because again, with the microphones, with that sound being subjective, you have to be able to listen to it on your system and how it's going to sound. This is kind of that really good step that allows you to hear it before getting your hands on it. Because you can't go out and purchase 12 microphones and then send 11 of them back. Amazon is really great, with allowing you to return things, but this is completely free and allows you to kind of test things out at first. So I definitely recommend checking them out. For a lot of applications, if we needed to do something in stereo, we took the 40-50 microphones, which are often used in stereo applications, and put them all into one. So what if you could put 2 40-50 microphones together and you perfectly time align them, and it could take up less space? So we did the 40-50 with 2 microphone elements in it. It's a stereo microphone. And so we have microphone facing the front and on the side, and it allows you to do 2 different pickups. Kind of 3, but one of them is an XY stereo pickup. We have it at 90 degrees, which is the front of the microphone capsules are at a 90-degree pickup, or a 90-degree angle, and then also at 120 for a little bit wider. So that's two settings on that 4050. Put that one microphone up sort of as two, and you don't need to worry about alignment of the elements. It's all done for you. The other one is one of my favorites, which is called mid-side. And basically, a good example of what I really like to look at is a drum set. You put this microphone out, and one of the microphone elements is like the blue line. It's a cardioid pickup. It's front facing. And then the other microphone element is like the red. It's a bidirectional, or the figure of 8, where it's picking up on the left and right. So we take the blue element and send that to, let's call that our mid, or our middle. And then the red, let's send that to 2 separate channels. We're just going to duplicate the same thing. And on one side, we're going to reverse the phase, flip the polarity of it, and make that our right side. We'll pan that to the right, and then the other one is our left. So with those 3 faders now, we can determine how wide and how forward, how deep we want that stereo image to be. So with one microphone, we put that up, put it onto 3 microphone channels, and we can really have a good tool at our fingertips to build how deep we want that sound. Here's another visual of that in 3D. In the mid side, the microphones would be on top of each other, but this does kind of give us a visual then at that point as to how the blue is picking up the front and the green on the 2 sides. Another thing is taking the same microphone if you're using it in the studio, and what if you wanted to use it on the stage? Some people do that. We made the AE5400. So we took the same element that's in the 4050 microphone, took the cardioid element of it, and put it into a live handheld microphone you can use on stage. For a lot of microphones, you'll find with microphone manufacturers, they'll take the same element that's used and put it in different products, change the tonality of the microphone, put it for a different special purpose microphone again. So with this one microphone element that they created with the 4050, we now have 3 different products: the 4050, the 4050 stereo, and the AE5400. Any questions again at this point with the kind of looking at some of the other aspects of that?
Brent, it looks like we have a couple questions in the chat.
Oh, yes. Okay. Is there a specific microphone you'd recommend for a home studio? My first comment to that is it depends. So it depends on what it is we're looking for. Obviously, the ideal situation is we have a good microphone locker that we build for that gives us the most versatility. All of us starting off, we need to buy one microphone that can do as much as possible. There are a lot of different things. So let's say we're geared more towards a specific style that we're picking up, or whether it is voiceovers, something that's tuned to your voice. The 20 series microphones are really popular and a really good place to start off. Like I said, the 2020 microphone is one of our best selling microphones. It's $100. It's the largest selling large diaphragm microphone. Again, it's only $100. The step up from that is a little bit better and does include a shock mount is the AT2035. And then we do have the AT2050, which is very similar, like I said, to the 4050, that it's 3 microphones in one. You get the cardioid pickup, so directional pickup, the bidirectional, the figure of 8, and then the omnidirectional. So sort of 3 microphones in one. Another microphone that I do like to recommend for someone starting out is the AT4040. That I want to say is something like $200, maybe $300, but is in our 40 line of microphones, which is used in every professional studio around the world. They've got some type of 40 series microphone in there, and is a really good directional microphone without having to spend a lot of money. So I usually direct people to start there. Let's see, kind of positions available for someone who is interested in working at an audio company. Right. So one of the things that I often talk to people about is a lot of times people just want to be the next rock star, the next big producer, the next big engineer. There's a lot of different things you can do in the audio industry. And really kind of, I would recommend look inward on yourself and what are your strengths. Because salespeople come and go in this industry. They jump between different companies and stuff like that. And you can really, whether you're a very hands-on person, whether you're good with electronics, service departments are really big. A lot of times for people working at Audio-Technica, they're not really big audio people. They're just electronic people. They were in the military, working with electronics, CB radios and stuff like that. And there's one or two people that they've, really enjoyed the audio industry stuff, but they've had a knack for electronics and soldering. That's something I was never good at. And I don't have that background in, and I wish I did. There's definitely service, technical related departments like us, Audio Solutions, where you sort of get hands-on. I will say that no job is perfect. Sometimes you deal with people that are upset or need explaining to do. So if you're kind of like me and you can talk about different things, dive deep into the sort of theories behind audio, something like that. And then you also have, so different product managers working with the engineers as to how they are designing the products, how that's going to best hit the industry. And that's just one aspect. I'm thinking of, like the company of a manufacturer. There's installation of audio sound systems. Like I said, there are the installed sound is really, I think, going to take off. That's really doing a lot of projections for the installed sound stuff. It's not, to me, as fun or as fancy as, a recording studio or live, but you're still dealing with audio, and a lot of times it seems to me the people that are working in that, it's sort of a just, is it working? Is it getting the job done? Where you can really take it to the next step. If you're passionate about audio, you can really, let's make this sound good. Let's kind of be experimental in how we can make this sound the best it can. And then there is, live sound. There's rental companies. If you like being on the road, you can make a good living doing that. Depending on what city you're in, you can work with the different unions and setting up. One of my buddies here in Cleveland works for all the big events that come in and makes a good living just in doing that. I'm the type of person that I like a 9-to-5. I like a steady paycheck. And so this was a good option for me. Again, I'm an audio nerd, and I can kind of just do this type of thing, which I really do enjoy. Let's see. Just wanted to comment Audio-Technica products because they say nothing but 5-star reviews. We do make products that, like I said, I'm very proud and lucky to be able to work for a company that I do work for. We do make some products that do not have 5 stars. So, and a lot of times, that is with our more cost-effective products. We have our consumer line of products. We have what we call our ATR line. And so we have USB microphones. Great. They're, flying off the shelves for people for these applications, that they really need to be able to get audio from and work from home. And they do break down, sometimes with electronics have a mind of their own. But that's kind of why we have our department. We can talk to you on the phone, do a little bit of troubleshooting, and hey, is it just a setup thing? You know, a microphone is just the first or second thing. The first thing is the source. How does something sound? How does my voice sound? But the second thing in the signal chain, it's pretty important to have a good microphone. And it needs to work well with other things, you know, with computers. There's 20 different settings need to set up an, audio properly sometimes. And you can, a lot of times it's going through those steps with people. Or we do some troubleshooting and it's not working. We got a service department. Our service department gets stuff turned around with about 5 business days, which is pretty unheard of in this industry. So again, I'm really lucky and proud to work at Audio-Technica. Let's see, looks like another one came in real quick, and then we'll jump forward to our next aspect here. Oh, great. Okay. I'm glad you guys are enjoying some Audio-Technica products. Let's jump in here because I can go all day. Nobody really wants to hear me talk. I mean, let's be honest here. So our 50 series of microphones, this with our engineers in Japan, they said, don't worry about hitting a price point. Don't worry about hitting anything in particular. We just want the purity of sound, something new and innovative. And something they did with our 50 series is we use this new innovative rectangular element design. And as soon as the screen decides to go, and again, electronics have a mind of their own here. There we go. Okay. So right now we currently have 3 microphones in our 50 series line. It came out about 7 or 8 years ago. The first off was the one on the left, the 5040. Then we came out with the 5045 a few years later. And just last year, maybe 2 years ago, is the 5047. So we'll take a look at those 3 real quick. The biggest thing is the rectangular element. So why a rectangular element? Our 40 series stuff, when we looked at it before, a lot of times microphone elements are round. So with something being round, it has the same diameter all the way through. And that actually creates a resonant frequency. So round diaphragms have a single diameter, and hence it will have a frequency that will extend the frequency extend the response at that frequency. So it rings a little bit louder. With rectangular element, it has different diameters, and so it reduces the resonance. One thing additionally that our engineers did is each strand of that microphone element, which is only 2 microns thick, it's tensioned differently. So each step or each thread in that microphone element is tuned a little bit differently. So we've eliminated any type of resonant frequency. Also, having both a long side and a short side, they act as large and small diaphragms. So each 50 series element has what's called a double waved honeycomb surface. And that increases the effective diaphragm area. So again, we talked about the large and small diaphragms earlier, right? The small diaphragms are better for the transient response and better for the higher frequencies. The large diaphragms are better signal to noise, and we have extended lower frequency response. So for the 2 microphones that we're using 4 microphone elements, it's actually 4 small diaphragms that work together to create 1 large diaphragm. So we get both benefits of that, of the large and small diaphragms. And one thing that the diaphragms also do to ensure the purity of sound, title that they were going for, rather than balanced audio signal that comes with transformers or op amps, other things that are in the circuit, we use 2 of the elements as a positive signal and 2 elements as the negative signal. So this mechanically creates a balanced signal. Now, some of you might be asking, well, okay, so what's a balanced signal? You know, I've heard of a balanced cable or an unbalanced cable. Let's look at that real quick. So here's like an unbalanced line, what you would get with like a guitar cable or a keyboard cable. So each cable is going to pick up noise. No matter how much shielding we put in the world, it's going to pick up noise. So you'll see on the top the audio signal there, and then the electrical noise that's being picked up. Now, if we do the balance circuit, which whoever made this, I'm sorry, is frankly a genius. They did on the top the audio signal, which is picking up the noise, and then they did another conductor, and they reversed the phase of it. So as the voltage, you know, look at the very front, it goes up on the top cable, goes down on the other cable. Now, both those cables are picking up noise, and here's kind of the magic, the secret sauce, is the differential amplifier that's used in there, and the little code or the formula there. So you have the audio minus the negative audio gives you the audio plus audio. So you're actually doubling the signal that's coming out of a balanced line, and the noise minus noise gives us no noise. So it allows us to go really long distances with a balanced cable. You'll notice for like guitar cables or keyboard cables, those are usually maxed out at 25, maybe 50 feet. A balanced microphone cable, you can go very, very long distances. All right, so with our 50 series microphones, we have our 5040 and our 5047. They look very similar. And they look basically the same from the outside, except, you know, the different colors. The elements are the exact same. The 5040 has an extremely hot output because of its purity. So your preamp that you use with this microphone needs to be able to handle the current draw that comes from the 4050. It's a bit of a power diva. If not, at higher SPL, you can get audio artifacts in your from your preamp current draw. And so we sort of redesigned the 4050 a few years ago and came out with the 5047. And the difference is the transformer. You'll see that kind of little gray box on that circuit board. That's a transformer. And so that lessens the current draw from those four elements, and basically allows you to use with any microphone preamp. Now, because we put a transformer in there, it changes the sound a little bit. So it's more warmer, almost kind of like a FET sounding microphone. So the 5040 is very true, transparent. What is going into the microphone is what you're going to get on the output of it. The 5047 has a little bit more warmth to it, almost like a tube microphone. So again, 5040 real quick, large and small diaphragm elements. It's with a stereo microphone, you get two microphone elements. With this, you get four matched pairs. Transformerless, so no other circuits in there, and a very, very low self noise. Self noise of a microphone you'll often find in the specs, and you know, 30, 20, 15 is a pretty good spec for a self noise of a microphone. So this is, I believe, the lowest self noise of any microphone that's out there. One of the things with the 50 series and the purity of sound is there was one spec in each of the microphones that they wanted to excel at. And this was the self noise of the microphone. Now, you may have noticed in the video earlier that the announcer from the Tonight Show has the 5040 microphone in there. He does have a lavalier microphone, which he does use. And the 5040, I believe, is not plugged in, but it looks really cool. So the 5045, it's the largest rectangular diaphragm element that we made. This one is different than the rectangular elements that are in the other two microphones. The biggest spec with this one is 149 dB of the dynamic range. So this is an excellent microphone for instruments. A lot of big engineers, Capitol Records, Al Schmidt, he is a huge audio engineer and producer. He's using these as one of his now go-to microphones. Recently came out with a book, which is a great read, and he gives his top microphones, and this made the list. So very excited about that. And real quick, the 5047, same design as the 5040, but we add the transformer. In doing so, that gives us a 142 dB dynamic range. Giving that a little more warmth to the sound again. It is the choice microphone for speaking and for singing. Again, got another kind of quick video, gives us a little bit when we look at the beauty and the history of Japan here real quick. Okay, so there is a fantastic white paper that's on the AT website on that product page. If you really want to kind of dive deep into the engineering side of the microphones, gives you some really good information. Next, I'll kind of talk about the Olympic work that I do, but I'll see if let's see if there's any other questions that came in. Anybody else? No, it doesn't look like there was any more written questions. Anybody have a question on the 50 series stuff? For the Olympic stuff, excuse me, the Olympic stuff, I've, like I said, we've been doing the microphones for the Olympics since 1996, the Atlanta Games. And I started working on the games for just this last Winter Games in 2018, the Pyeongchang in South Korea. So we provide all the microphones for the sound of the games is what they call it. And I'll be working as the main mic coordinator, field shop manager for the upcoming games for 2021 now. That whole thing has been interesting to follow. So let me share my screen. Okay, so we provide the microphones for OBS, which is the Olympic Broadcast Services. They're located in Madrid, and that is what they do. They provide the broadcast for anything Olympics. They do everything all in-house. And we are a vendor for them. We are not a sponsor. So what does that mean? That means that we can't really do any publicity, any printed publicity saying AT microphones are used for the Olympic Games. And that makes obvious sense to me, because when people like the big companies like McDonald's or Nike, they're paying hundreds of millions of dollars to be a sponsor. And if one of the athletes wears an Adidas shoe, and then Adidas comes out and says, ooh, the Adidas shoes were used, for the Olympic Games, that's really not fair to those people who have spent millions and millions of dollars. So we're able to do usually one publication in the US, because we also provide the microphones directly to NBC, which is the US broadcast rights holder for the Olympics. So you won't see much around it, but it's something we're able to kind of just talk about by word of mouth. Let's see here. Okay. Seems to take about 3 or 4 clicks before my screen starts to go here. Here we go. Okay. So AT, we work with OBS to do the audio design, and then we distribute all the microphones to the different locations. So we have support as well, because for the games, it is 2 weeks with the weekend caps. So usually the opening ceremonies start on a Friday, then go Saturday, Sunday, then that first week, second week, and then Saturday, Sunday. And the closing ceremonies are then on that Sunday. So 2 weeks of pretty intense work running around to the different places. We get there about we're there for about 7 weeks in total. So we get there early, distribute the microphones, help with any troubleshooting during the games, and then repack. We actually repack for the Paralympics, which is usually right after. So this is the team for Pyeongchang. And so pretty small group. Next is, I actually just add this in, OBS produced a video that I got off of YouTube that talks, it's an hour special. If you're really interested in the behind the scenes stuff for the Olympics, check it out. I believe it's called like Broadcasting Rio, which was the 2016 Summer Games, and really talks about why audio is important for the broadcast.
Those images of Olympic sport mean very little if there is no accompanying sound. Conveying the atmosphere of the crowd, but also the sound of the sport and its athletes, is as integral to the broadcast experience as the pictures themselves. Award-winning audio specialists from OBS work closely with both the international federations and with the venue designers themselves to ensure that microphone placement will capture the key sounds from every sport in the highest possible quality.
Gymnastics is very, very challenging on the audio coverage. Have a lot of details, but we cannot have any impact on the athlete's performance. So we have a very, very near work with the federations to get positions of the microphones as near as possible from the apparatus, but without any impact on the athlete performance. Here in live on the venue, don't have access to our special sounds that we can get from the athlete when he's performing on the apparatus. So we try to transmit that for the broadcast. It's exclusive for broadcast.
By ensuring the venue presentation does not drown out the integral sounds of each sport, OBS allows us to experience the movement of feet, the bounce of the ball, the swipe of the racket, and the swish of the net. Such sound effects take the viewer from their home into the venue itself, Hearing the appreciation of the crowd carries them into the same emotions, the same feelings as they witness some of the best sporting performances ever seen. One of the new initiatives for the Rio Games saw microphones placed along the Lagoa rowing course inside the lane buoys. A serene sport when viewed from afar, but the energy it takes becomes clear when we take the viewer up close, both in sound and vision.
So having the microphone placement really does add a lot to the presentation that is visual. So one of the things that Nuno, who is the audio director for OBS when he was speaking, is that we're not allowed to put microphones on the athletes because that could impede what it is they're doing. And so we all need to work together to try to get the microphones in the best place as possible to get the audio pickup, but not disturb anything that they're doing. So it's a pretty huge process. It takes about 9-10 months to put the audio plans together and, to kind of go back and forth. So here's the microphones we had for the Winter Games, Pyeongchang. We had about 5,000 microphones, and that was for about 17 venues for the Winter Games. The Winter Games are pretty small in comparison to the Summer Games. Like I said, about 17 venues with the Winter Games. For Tokyo, we're going to have 71 venues. So that's going to be a lot of microphones. So each of those blue bins, we pack in the microphones. There's a box of 40, 50 microphones that all go out. All the windscreens, clips. So we gather the equipment, all the accessories with it, and then we have to barcode each product. So again, pretty intense. We do have some specialty microphones. This is a product that we don't sell. It is a contact microphone. It does not pick up sound like any other microphone. It is waterproof. We actually put this this microphone was created for Sochi, I believe, and we put it in the ice. So for the Winter Games, we freeze it into the actual into the ice. For the Summer Games, I believe we put this in the pool as well. And this really gets that sound of, let's say, when the skate goes on the ice. So here's an example of that. Most of the jumps are done in the four corners, so that's where we had the microphones. They're talking about doing more, but again, we have to work with the federations of each sport because the microphones have to be below the top of the ice. Ice melts, and so it needs to be below a certain depth. We are actually creating a smaller version of that microphone for moving forward in some of the games. So it's always changing. It's really fun to kind of see the evolving aspect of a lot of different things. Here's just a little bit of a Where's Waldo of the microphones. So during the games, we kind of get to go around and talk with the engineers. A little bit of kind of the microphones in action. 40-50s are hanging from the ceilings most of the time for picking up the crowds. Shotgun microphones on all of the cameras. The big fuzzy things being outside, those are wind jammers that we put on the microphone. So a lot of times you won't see the actual Audio-Technica microphone. You're going to see this big fuzzy thing, the wind jammers. And hanging for the crowds in the different spots. Here's the sliding track, so for the luge, skeleton, all that type of stuff. On the picture on the right, this is the start gate for one of the events with the handles. And do you see the little lavalier microphone that's in there? So we use that high to low lavalier microphone in places. Here's some just ambient microphones from the jumping. You'll see the microphone different spots here. So we've got 4 microphones going all the way down the ramp. So there's a lot that's kind of involved with it. It's not one microphone. We use quite a lot of product. We hide little lavalier microphones in the into the side pads. As speed skaters would go and they'd crash into the walls, we have to make sure there's enough slack in the cable because those are going to break away. A lot of kind of thought that goes into it. Here's some 40-50 microphones again. Some microphones taped, some really high-tech rigging is done. There's usually about 6 days to set up all the venues, and pretty small staff that's doing all of this. So we got to do things very quickly. And at the end of the day, we got to get on air for broadcast. Here's some wireless microphones for the opening and closing ceremonies. This was a picture taken during one of the rehearsals. They rehearse all week prior to the opening ceremonies. Some more microphones on cameras. Here is that waterproof microphone on the left-hand side. That is attached to the post for the opening gate. So when you get that thump of when the gate opens up and drops, that's what that microphone is picking up. We also have some little lavaliers up top. On the right-hand side, pick up people talking and just some ambient sounds. There are handheld microphones, so people that their job is to stand out in the cold, and it was extremely cold, and they stand there and they move the microphones and hold it. So I give those people a lot of props. I'm lucky enough that I didn't have to be out in the cold. This is from the curling events. We did, I want to say 72 channels of wireless. This is one of the events that we have microphones, wireless microphones on the athletes. As they're doing the sweeping and they're yelling and stuff like that, that is part of the broadcast pickup. And we had to do a really high channel count of wireless in this area. So at each of the venues, there are broadcast trucks, and the audio is mixed there on site by the A1 engineers. And then they're directed by the producers back at the main hub, which is called the IBC, the International Broadcast Center. So here's different engineers, right on site in the location, mixing in real time. Then they're using Slack to communicate back with the producers at the IBC. Here's the IBC. They use about 400 miles worth of fiber cable to connect the IBC out to the different venues. And that's usually about a year and a half that they are on site in the city, setting that all up prior to games. So here's some pictures inside the IOC. It is just basically huge broadcast studios for each of the rights holders. And here's the whole audio team. I mean, this is our 5 or 6 AT crew, as well as everybody else who is, just taking it out. So all of these people work extremely hard to get you that broadcast audio that comes out. Is there any questions on the Olympic stuff at this point? And then if not, we'll continue into the last one. I do see the question here, 2021 games. So yes, they did just release the dates. I want to say yesterday. It will be July 23rd, I think, 2021. So they're pushing it back almost exactly a year. We were thinking maybe they'd shoot for spring. The reason for they couldn't make an announcement right away because they need to work with, again, the different federations. So, they could say, well, let's move it to spring. And then the federation for the people that do like the triathlon, the biathlon, they're swimming out in the ocean and stuff. They need it to be summertime. So it's a lot of back and forth. Who's okay with what? We all need to sort of work together. But from our aspect of it, one of the big problems that we're going to have is with the 2021 games in summer, we're going to have 5 months to get ready for the winter games in China for 2022. So we've got a really quick turnaround. We're actually just going to have to be basically working on 2 Olympic games simultaneously. We're pretty well set with what we need to do testing wise with microphones. We're doing some prototype microphones that we're testing out. We'll look at some of that we did for the winter games coming up here in the next few slides. Testing some of those out. So we do have a little bit more time for that. But in probably by December, we're going to have to start switching gears to the next winter games, do all the planning for that. So I'll hit the ground usually probably, at least for this year, it was slated to be the beginning of July. So I'll get to Tokyo in July, start getting all the microphones set up. And when that's done, I'll probably stay a few extra weeks in Japan because that's where our headquarters are. We'll probably do a meeting for the Olympic Games, the Winter Games. With our headquarters being in Japan, we're hoping to do some parties and stuff with the engineers there. So we'll probably be able to do just a lot of planning together on site during the games. Any opportunities available? Yes. Not through us, but look on OBS, Olympic Broadcast Services. I want to say on the website they did have opportunities, some paid opportunities. And then they do have, a bunch of volunteers. They do have a lot of people because, they're bringing in, billions of dollars worth of commerce into that area. And they got to make it be the best possible with as little hiccups as possible. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into the planning of it. Definitely check it out if it is something you're interested in. Getting started in the industry, I usually tell people this is not the industry that you're going to make a lot of money in. If you're looking to make a lot of money, I would say maybe look for something else because I'm lucky enough to have a 9-to-5 paycheck and doing what I love. But there's a lot of people that it's, you are in this industry because you love it. So if it is something you're interested in, absolutely. Great experience. You're working with the best of the best with the Olympics. So. I do see, thank you, Hillary. You posted up the OBS website there in the chat. Check it out. And I did remember seeing that they did post up some stuff 6 or 7 months ago about opportunities with working with the games. I believe they're going to go through the entire process again because they can't just assume someone was going to give, 2 months worth of their time to it for this summer. So definitely check it out. Another question, are the 50 series expensive because of the built-in diaphragms? Not because of the diaphragms so much, but because they're handmade. That's one thing that I forgot to mention is the 50 series stuff is all handmade. Again, we look at the subjective and objective. The microphones include a really cool shock mount that's kind of, all new designed. It's all metal, it's heavy. You could just tell that it's well built and a lot of love goes into the building of that microphone. It's, it's for someone like me, it's an engineer's dream. It's, very new technology, very cool, thinking outside of the box. But do they, make a lot of money? Not really. we're able to, again, another reason I'm very lucky to work at Audio-Technica is because we have a wide array of products. The turntables and stuff like that, that's our paycheck. That's what keeps our doors open, and our headphones and stuff. And we have the ability then to put the money into R&D to build these kind of new technologies. It sort of feeds off each other. So we don't sell a lot of them, but when we do sell them, it's getting the Audio-Technica name and stuff like that into people's hands. And we make a product line that, let's see, what does our marketing person say? From crib to grave or something like that. So again, you can get an inexpensive Audio-Technica microphone and grow through your career with it, with the 20 series stuff, and listen to your records that you're making on your home stereo with Audio-Technica headphones and everything else like that. So very, very lucky to be doing what I'm doing. Yes, and the discrete circuitry. It's the 5040 is as pure of a sound as you're going to get. The different transformers and stuff like that. You are adding in so many artifacts, and it's a give and take. It depends. With audio, it depends what it is we're looking for. So if you want something that is true to the sound that you want to pick up, the 50 series, the 5040 is definitely something that I recommend. Al Schmidt did a DVD called Recording a Big Band. If you like documentaries, you got some free time here, look up. There's some really good documentaries. Sound City is a good one that David Grohl did. There is Muscle Shoals. That's my favorite documentary, audio documentary. And one that Al Schmidt did, The Art of Recording the Big Band. And he's a great audio engineer. Definitely check it out if you get a chance. And he uses the 5040 for the vocal. You just see it in shots. They don't talk about the vocals. But since then, he's really loved that 5045. And he does have a 5047, which I think he's using for his vocals now. So check it out. All right, last thing, which is sort of looking into the future. How are we going to look at kind of what's the next thing? How are we going to use microphones in the future? We use microphones, so all the consumer stuff, audio, you'll see a lot of audio jobs for the automotive industry. How you're taking microphones used in cars, the acoustics of cars, something new that we normally really didn't have to worry about before. And if my computer decides it wants to go. Okay, so here's a prototype that we did for the Winter Games. It's an ambisonic microphone. That's kind of a buzzword that you hear. So first in audio, we had mono. Then we had stereo. What's the next level? Think 3D audio. Okay, so the recent buzzword is immersive audio. We're used to immersive sound with surround sound, right? Same sort of thing, just the other direction. So surround sound, we've got 5, 7, 12 speakers around us, and we're sitting in one place. And how we design the sound coming out of those speakers gives us that directionality. How do we do that in the opposite direction now? We have multiple microphone elements in one close space. And we use those microphones to work together to get our directionality. So just like we did with that 5040 ST, the stereo microphone, we can put multiple microphone elements in a single space and use the different signals together to create directionality. So this prototype we did here is 32 capsules. All right, and so let's think of this with our ears, right? To hear sound, we use both ears. If I'm sitting here against a wall, my left ear is closer to the wall, and my wife is down the hall, which is closer to my right ear. My right ear, or my right microphone element, is going to pick up the signal of my wife talking to me at first. Now, I'm also going to hear that in my left ear, right? And the sound's going to bounce off the wall and hit my left ear a few milliseconds after that. In my brain, I'm doing all that processing, and I know my wife is speaking to me to my right side. So with all the reflections, How we use microphones, remember with the directionality of the microphones, it has the null pickup of the microphone, or we can reverse the phase of a microphone. So we sort of negate the sound. So we can turn a microphone to say, almost think, don't pick up sound from this direction. So a lot of processing is going to be used in microphones and moving forward. Think of the shotgun microphone, right? The directionality of that. Ambisonic uses matrixed directionality. We use phase cancellation to reduce or even cancel out particular sound directions. I had a thing about phase cancellation. My wife said it was too nerdy. So take a look at it. I did a blog. Check out the Audio-Technica website. We do a blog each week called the Audio Solutions Question of the Week. A lot of stuff, when we get questions, I'll answer the question, then I'll link to a blog that we did on it, because that allows you to kind of get more information as to, why is this the case? So check out the one on phase cancellation I did, kind of gives a good demonstration. So here's an ambisonic microphone that we make. It's called an array microphone is what we're calling, which has 3 elements in it. And designed to be used in a meeting room application. So this is able to be used with video conferencing as delay is not critical. So one of the things with audio that we need to overcome is the processing time. You might have heard of latency, the time that something needs to be the audio to be processed. That's one of the big obstacles that we're having to overcome. So using matrix microphones or ambisonic microphones in real time is one of the challenges right now, because for that processing time to take place, most of the time humans are going to start to determine that there's an issue with the sound or delay around 10 milliseconds. So if you can get, your time down to below that, you should be good. For this microphone, like I said, we use 3 microphone elements in it. And here is kind of, you can take those microphones and change the volume level. So again, we can lower a microphone 4 decibels. We can change the polarity on some, and then change the level to raise up, let's say, one side, a decibel or 2, and take, 4 or 5 decibels out of another one. That's how we can use the microphones together to create this beamforming, this faux directionality within the microphones. And that's, again, where this processing power is our limitation right now, because it takes time to do that. So right now, these microphones are used in post-production, or something that we don't need high quality audio in real time. And that's kind of what we're testing for the Olympic Games is coming up, is some new things that how can we try to get the latency down with that? So used in meeting applications. If there's a delay in the video conferencing, obviously the video, when the presentation is jumpy, you sort of go, yeah, it is what it is. But how are we going to, come to better that in the future? And I think that's where it's kind of all coming. And remember, there's no perfect microphone. The answer is it depends. There's so much that the future holds really for microphones, how we are using those. I mentioned a little bit ago about the cars, audio industry. They're taking, the microphones that are in the cars and use it for, you're talking on your Bluetooth and your stereo and stuff like that. But it's also, they're taking like noise canceling headphones, microphones in the car, and it's picking up the live sound of the noise that's from outside and the rumble of the car and all that type of stuff. And it's doing the processing to cancel out that sound and coming through your speakers then to make the sound softer inside of your car. So were you really going outside of the box with a lot of the microphones in the future? So a lot of exciting things. keep up to date with Audio-Technica stuff. If you're an Audio-Technica fan, please contact with us. Keep in touch, on YouTube and Facebook, all this stuff. Here's my contact information. Feel free to check me out on LinkedIn. I'll usually post some pictures for when I'm at the games and stuff. And there's my email address. Now for kind of a question and answer. If you guys have questions, you are able to ask me any question. But the rule is I can choose whether or not to answer that question. So, feel free to, like I said, if we didn't cover something, you have a question on something specifically, feel free to email me, and I'll let Hillary take it from here.
Yeah, Brent, thank you so much. This was amazing.
Certainly, yeah. I can go on all day, which I'm sure some people don't necessarily want. So, like I said, feel free to reach out at any point.
So Magnolia, did you check out the website? There's actually, I checked it out. If you go on the website for the Olympic broadcast, the link that I gave you, the obs.tv/home, all the information on how to sign up to be either a volunteer or work the games, it's all there. So check that out for sure. Oh, Isaiah had a question about if you would be willing to send some products that he could do a review on.
Thanks, Isaiah. We definitely get this question a lot. We do that. We do have people that work with our marketing department, and they do have set people that they usually send it out to. We do work with a lot of different people depending on what the application is. So if they're headphones, what's your market, or do you have a YouTube page that you're putting the stuff on, or whether it's an engineering person. So definitely shoot an email to Audio-Technica. There's different email addresses on the website. You can just really send it to any of them, and then we usually forward them to the different departments that it needs to go. It'll end up going to our marketing people, and they will, if they have a need for that application, what you're willing to do, they can contact you.
Okay. Any other questions right now? You can put them in the chat, or you could unmute yourself. And if not, I have all of Brent's contact information. So if you want to shoot me an email, I could totally, put you guys in contact. Again, Brent, thank you so much. I really appreciate this. This was extremely knowledgeable, and I learned so much about microphones that I didn't even know. So this was fantastic.
Yeah. Great, thanks. Yeah, and it's definitely, it's a small piece of the puzzle. Microphones are just a small piece of the puzzle, and there's obviously a lot there. So keep learning. Don't ever stop learning. And when I make the presentation, I learn some new stuff myself. So it's really important to keep going.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much again. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, thank you all again. Stay safe. Stay healthy. And as always, like I said, anything you guys need, just let me know.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks again. Bye now.